No. It's escape submission free, so your brain wants to run away rather than making decisions. Or escape submission freeze, maybe it just wants to freeze.
No, she's asked me heaps of times in the last couple of months, what do you do here, what do you do here? I'm like, she goes, do you ever sit down? I'm like, still thinking about it.
Yeah. And I assume in the past you would have thought it through much faster and...
She gets really frustrated at me now when I'm trying to explain things to her, and then she says something and it's not even part of what I've said at all, and she's like, but that's what you said. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, right, so the processing just isn't happening very fast. Yeah.
And that's been going both ways.
Actually, because under chronic stress the hippocampus shrinks in size. I might check that as well when I get there.
Oh no, I don't need anything else to shrink.
Let's just...
Thank God!
Sadness, despondency, depression. And hold that nice and strong. So feeling bummed shuts down the frontal cortex. And underwriting that as fear, threat, danger. Which one, what?
Oh, the music. I keep thinking it's in my head, but it's not.
There's speakers in all the rooms.
Canon and D, it's the one her violin she used to play.
Fear, threat, danger. No? Sadness, despondency, depression. Hold on. So then your hippocampus. Left to right connections. Escape submission freeze, wanting to run away. Okay. Because part of what lays down short and long term memory is the amount of emotional anything connected to it. So, how as kids you'd get in trouble if you didn't remember stuff at school, but somehow it ended up working for lots of people. So it's sort of like the fear of getting in trouble would allow kids to put in the effort to study. However, some people it just shuts down their corpus callosum and they don't remember anything. Yeah, it doesn't always work. Or the fear of getting, the old ruler or something at school, so that sort of fear can actually, sort of make people. But anyway, with this, it's the amount of emotional connection to what lays down memory, but when these connections aren't happening, it's much harder. So then you only remember things either logically or creatively, which means you're not getting the full breadth of the thought process.
Is that like you're only using like the left side or the right side of your brain?
Yeah, hold out. Beautiful. Because the main thing that shuts down the hippocampus is fear of failure. Oops. Hold out nice and strong. And once again, because this has been a big year for you, trying to be independent and financially, it's a big trigger for lots of people. And it's putting your brain into escape. So even though you're trying to do it, it's like you say, it's the more you try, the further away you get from your goal.
Which is true, because the money for the tiny house I actually had.
Yeah, right.
And as it came in,
Disappeared. Yeah, right. Energetically.
Okay, right place, right time. It's meant to happen now as opposed to last year. 'Cause now it's hers, it's not shared.
In relation to fear of failure.
You're going to click her toes as well.
Does she deserve it?
Yes.
Fear of success. Hard. Yeah, so your brain's between a rock and a hard place. So what does success mean to you that's bad? Like you said, the whole tall poppy thing in your family, where anyone who is successful is...
I see that. It's either a shame and blame program that's come from childhood.
Yeah.
Or perhaps making mistakes, because...
Yeah.
Isn't that's that when you said about you don't want to be successful because then you have that fear that someone will show up and be like, oh, I know you did.
Blah-de-blah,
Yeah,
the shame and
right.
blame thing.
success. And hold. Beautiful. Hold. Okay. So that is hippocampus having a hard time laying down short-term memory because of a lack of pleasure and reward. Your brain's going, well, what am I getting out of it? So if you're not getting enough dopamine, serotonin kicking in when you're trying to learn, your brain's just going, meh, meh.
So I have to use colours all the time.
Yeah, right.
Use colours.
To try to stimulate everything.
Yeah, trying to make it fun, do pictures.
Yeah.
But to limit kinesthetic, it's okay, but it's not always like that.
Hold.
See, when it came to the NOT stuff, the brain just turned off.
Yeah. And when was that? 10 years ago?
Oh, longer. In 2006 or 2007.
Yeah, right.
It's about 10 years ago.
Yeah. So that was short-term memory not being laid down because of old pain and punishment circuits.
Quite
So in
possible.
other words, learning, is a not fun for you, or it's a trauma,
And
or
not
it's a
well known,
something.
because Guy was, every time, because I had quite a, I had Cass with me, so there's quite a bit of laughter, everyone with him was laughing. She came up to me and said to me, you shouldn't laugh that much while you do sessions.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
But it was appropriate laughter.
Yeah, right. Someone had a go at me on YouTube about laughing during a session once, and I
You tell me
actually,
that you're a light worker?
and I thought, I said something. I said, oh no, depends on the client, depends on the mood. Sometimes that's what you want to do to try to pick up the energy.
Yeah.
Interesting to think of things people.
I find
But
uncomfortable
maybe
when the
they don't.
person doesn't laugh, or like when it's all really serious. 'Cause
Yeah. That was long-term memory not being laid down because of a lack of pleasure reward. So these little pathways aren't working very well.
I painted myself into a little corner with where I do well and where I don't. Which is weird because if you want to be self-sufficient, you need to have your eyes on the fucking nose.
Yeah.
And I'm petrified of doing things legal because it involves like VAS and New Zealand GST. Like, I just,
dealing with online banking and stuff. I'm not doing.
Yeah.
oh my god, yeah. Putting in wrong numbers.
Mm-hmm. So that one was long-term memory. So none of these pathways are working. Laying down. So because the body's in survival, basically the hippocampus gets switched off under survival. So that's why it tends to shrink the longer we're in chronic stress, because it's not getting blood supply, nerve supply. So basically when we're in survival, the survival stuff, because when you're about to get eaten by a tiger, you don't want to remember how to do it. There is no memory associated with it, so your memory centers get shut down.
But what do you mean you don't remember how to do it?
Because you just want to act and react. So if there's a tiger in this room, none of us have a program with how to cope with that stored in our
Okay.
brain, so therefore our brain shuts down all our frontal cortexes and goes straight into fight, flight or freeze, whatever it thinks is going to keep us alive.
Can you be stuck in flight or
Yes.
freeze for long
For
periods?
your whole life.
Yeah.
Some people are.
People who deer in headlights
Yeah.
wonder why people stay in abusive relationships and no one goes into fight or flight. You can't do anything because you
Yeah.
guys.
And people who literally, like if they get, because when someone likes confrontation, and you feel that confrontation, it's no problem because your brain keeps going. Someone else under confrontation, their brain just freezes. Their brain might be talking away in the background, but they cannot speak a single word. So it just depends how our brains are wired as to what we do under those sort of
So
stresses.
we all know who
My
that
two
is.
different parents.
Yeah. It's been an interesting one this morning. Had the cops coming up past me.
Oh,
And I swear to God, so much adrenaline hit my body, it fucking hurt.
Yeah, right.
I could feel it
It's
in my
terrifying,
veins,
isn't
it
it?
was hideous.
Yeah, okay.
can the fight or fear be physically expressed?
Oh yeah, exactly as it sounds. So So it can make us rage and, want to punch someone in the nose, and, it absolutely. And sometimes, and it's happening really fast as well. So we can have it either just in the amygdala, so therefore you can be acting quite normally, and if something happens, your brain only has 1/500th of a second to respond clearly and consciously to stress, and if not, it tries to go into an amygdala pattern. So, we've only got 1/500th of a second. There's no time there to think, gee, will I go into a rage? We're already there before we're aware of it.
And enjoying it.
Well, because it's power, that sometimes the anger is what gives us that sense of power, especially when we're powerless in so many areas of our life. That's again.
I should make Mum come over here and you can poke and prod her. Maybe she'll stop being a dick. Actually, I take it back. I don't think my mum's ever left the country. Do you come to New Zealand at all?
Hey, you could start studying.
Yeah, but my mum won't really work on it. I'm gonna have a conversation with her.
Ah, but that's where surrogate balance is coming.
But don't you have to have permission?
Yeah.
I have taught her well.
Yeah, that because I never knew about surrogate without because the way you would have been taught in Touch for Health is touching the person to do the surrogacy. And bit by bit it becomes, more, useful. And, but I remember once I did do a surrogate balance for a lady's boyfriend, and at the time I had no concept that it was a bad thing to do without their permission. And he was a farmer, so he worked like 14, 16-hour days. We calmed down his survival stuff. He couldn't get up in the morning because he was so used to getting that adrenaline kick-starting in at 4 o'clock in the morning, he couldn't do it. Then she came back and she said, I think we did the wrong thing. And I went, how? And then we went, okay, don't do that again. Heart chakra. So underlying all of that memory stuff, heart chakra.
All she needs in her life. The only thing she needs to love.
Say that till you run away and have children.
Life is good, life
I'm
is
going
good,
to run
life
away
is
and
good.
have children. You're going to be there when I have children.
Are there any little people in your world?
Me.
Everyone praise them at work. And the face papers are shut.
Yeah. So there's a pain and punishment circuit really locked into your heart chakra.
Daddy issues.
And really being fully aware that you're responsible for yourself at the moment. And that's just really weighing heavily on your heart. Yeah, so even though you're feeling liberated, it's sort of that feeling of being connected with someone and having that lovable sort of thing is sort of a bit out of kilter at the moment.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it the last couple of days. No, sometimes it's when you reach across the bed and hold someone's hand and you feel anchored, or you feel,
Yeah.
okay, you might be fighting, but you're fighting at least.
Yeah.
You're not fighting alone.
That's what the cat's for.
Not my cat. He's a cranky bugger.
Oh, we know someone who can do cat animals.
Yeah. So that was only first stage stress, which wasn't too bad, so that's sheer back to normal. Oh, okay. So I'll do the Broca's Wernicke auditory integration, those sort of things. So firstly, brokers to brokers. Hold out. It actually showed up okay. Wernicke's. Hold. I love muscle testing. Auditory integration point, that's the one that muscle tested up as needing doing, and I thought, I'll check Broca's and Wernicke's first anyway. Okay, so that's the auditory integration points. once again, you can imagine if that connection between left and right isn't happening as easily as it should. Information, you know how we hear
Spell your
hear-
name backwards.
we hear contralaterally. So basically what we hear on this side goes over to the creative side of the brain and then back to the logical. So, you know, if someone is on that side of you're right-handed, you're left-handed.
Extras.
Ah, oh, I wonder how messed up your brain is.
I
Very.
play piano, violin, accordion, and art. And my art is different if it's a computer, if it's handwritten, if I'm painting, if I'm doing kinesiology, if I'm doing bowing.
Apparently moving the math.
Yeah.
You can do whatever.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Interesting. There's a guy in Australia who's just released a book on mathematicians. On mathematics. He's a teacher who got in the top 10 teachers in Australia. He's this young Asian dude, and he loves maths these days. Hated it at school, and because he's a teacher, he's just learned how to engage the class and get their input, and now he's like this teacher genius guy because he's just got kids. He's got a YouTube channel and yada yada yada. Anyway, one of the chapters in his books are why aren't all left-hand people extinct? Which made them say, well, why would that be a question in a mathematics book? And because lefties are often, they think differently from right-handed people, and they're often geniuses, and you know, they think differently, so therefore other people don't like them because they think different. You know, it's sort of like, you know, let's face it, anyone who isn't normal, people often get picked on. So, so lefties have copped that a bit over the
It's 'cause
years.
the government can't control us.
Lefties,
Yeah. They
Mhm.
tried to beat it out of them.
yeah, right. Made it a sign of the devil and all that jazz.
Never understood that.
Oh, it's craziness, isn't it?
Why lefties extinct?
Pardon?
Oh, sorry, I was laughing at what you said.
How? Ah, okay, so they're the rip and lip, left and right integrative points. So the left one is, okay, so you're a left-handed person, so it's all opposite. So on the right-hand side, which is your logical, so in theory, if you're a true left-handed person, you should have logic on your right hand and gestalt on your left side, if you're a true lefty.
Who would know? Because Mum just made it a point of making us, she's in that thalidomide stage. She wanted us like to pick up things with our feet and get both hands and write with both.
I
Yeah.
can write with both hands at the
Yeah.
same time.
You can as well.
Yeah. That's what she had one thing to teach me once. She's like, oh, see, I can do it, so you can do it. So I like cut paper with my right hand and use the mouse
So
with
who
my
would
right
know
hand.
really what's left and right?
That'll be
Nice.
next time you're in Australia.
If I'm doing violin, my right
Oh,
ear
yeah.
is my pitching ear.
Yeah. I mean, I could check it, but I don't have time to
Mm.
balance it now. Do you want to know if we can't do anything about it?
Sure.
Okay. So 2 fingers behind your left ear. Hold it nice and strong. Okay. So think of a big purple elephant. Give it roller skates and a bright red fluffy hat. Hold. Okay. Now think of the number 64. Divide by 8.
Oh, you
Add
got me right
13.
there.
Hold. Okay. So the elephant was no stress, the maths was, which means you've got gestalt on the left side of the brain.
Yeah.
What's that?
Gestalt creative.
Oh.
Yeah. So now think of the number 81. Divide by 9. Add 12. Hold. Okay. Now
I
think
can see
of.
something simple like, you know, mine is 2.
So now think of your favourite beach. Imagine the sand between your toes. Beautiful sunset. Where you'd sit. Hold. You're double gestalt. So you've actually got gestalt on both sides of the brain. But you don't have any logic.
Say the logic, but if you
Mm.
ask me to do a costume, make a set design, put together a band.
Well, that's
Blah, blah.
yeah, but all of that is working memory. That's not really about logic. That's about what you know how to do
Hey,
it, and
you
it's
try and get 5 people and get more together and make something happen in a couple of days.
yeah. It's big thinking stuff. It's working memory stuff. It's knowing what you know, putting it all together. So that's actually quite dorsolateral frontal cortex and frontal stuff.
That just hurts. Actually hurts my chest. my superpower. Double gestalt.
Well, when Linda and I both studied LEAP, and it's got to be 15 years ago or something now, in those days you had to do 500 hours of kinesiology training before you were allowed to do LEAP. Was that when you had to do it?
I didn't even reach the 500.
Yeah, right. Because NOT you had to have 250 hours,
Yeah.
and LEAP was 500, so it took quite a few years. Anyway, so by the time we got there, Linda and I, because it was taught very differently to the way it is now, so I think being able to assess logic gestalt was like, you know, lesson number one. And so Linda and I were doing a balance on ourselves. She was double logic, I was double gestalt, and we'd been training together for 7 years, and it was honestly so true when we put together, when it all made sense. And anyway, so then of course we went off. One of the things that I was so paranoid about, I could feel how important LEAP was, you know, to get it right. And Linda had always gone away from courses. She'd written so many notes, you know, step-by-step instructions, so she did not miss anything. She wouldn't work on a single human being for weeks until she was all organised. I'd sort of get someone up on the table, you know, quick and dirty, and if I remembered it from the weekend, I was set, sort of thing. Anyway, 3 months later, follow-up course, we went along. I was doing it more like Linda had ever. I went home and I made all these notes, and we didn't discuss it, it's just what we did. Whereas her notes were like a quarter of what mine were. Like, it was so bizarre. And then just for fun, we'd always, I saw your purple socks before, and I was going to say, is that a Kiwi thing? Because Linda and I are big purple fans. Anyway, but we always turn up with the same toothbrushes. We will go to a course and we will buy a new toothbrush, and we'll both turn up from New Zealand and Australia with the same toothbrushes.
Yeah.
Stupid. Anyway, so for the part two, both of us had made the decision before we went that we wouldn't buy purple. So we bought, both of us, her in New Zealand, me in Australia, I'd bought a black and yellow one. She'd bought a black and yellow one. But my stripes were this way, like black, yellow, black, and hers were crossways. And we just looked at, I went into the bathroom and I thought, whose toothbrush is this? Anyway, we just thought, that's how our brains work. We were sort of joking that it had to do with the neurons in the brain, which of course it didn't, but it amused us anyway. You never know how the brain manifests all sorts of weird stuff.
I come home from ENOT and on all of King Phone's notes and all that stuff, diagrams, 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 diagrams. Even Bowen, forget the fucking book, diagrams, diagrams.
Yeah, right.
It's just so
Hand modes, I draw the heads, I draw just like obsessive.
Yeah. Like, it just feels like that's been rolling forward throughout the balance hold.
the Hunching River. I was got to.
Which once again is very much about protection. Yeah. So let's do it here, next stretch. Breathe in, breathe out and lift towards me. And breathe in and relax. Breathe out and lift. And breathe in and relax. Breathe out and lift. And hold. And breathe in, breathe out and lift. And breathe in, breathe out and lift. And breathe in, breathe out and lift. Do you use essential oils?
I've only used essential, well,
Yes, you
plus
do.
the,
Oh,
I
right.
don't use deodorants.
Yeah, okay, cool. Here you go, my lovely.